What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 427 of the Smark Out Moments Smack Talk podcast, Hot Tags of the Week, where we will be breaking down some of the current events, rumors, news, gossip, and everything else that went down in the world of professional wrestling over the past few days that we feel like talking about. Otherwise, we won't talk about it. That's kind of the point. So, who are we? Well, I'm your host as always, Tony Mango, and joining me as always is Robert DeFelice.
Heyo.
And somebody who doesn't frequently pop up on the hot tags, but does join us as much as he often can, Callum Wiggins.
When you do it at a time that's convenient for me, yes.
Yeah, instead of like midnight. But as usual here, everybody, we've got the same sort of setup. If you want to chime in with your thoughts, go ahead and leave a comment below. And obviously, if you are on the platforms that don't have the comment section, like Spotify or Stitcher or iTunes or Google Podcasts or anything like that, hop on over to YouTube. And while you're there, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, go ahead and do that. While you're doing that, ring that little bell for the notifications, like the video because that helps out quite a bit. And as I mentioned, drop a comment below, keep the discussion going, tell us your thoughts on these hot tags and more. And we will talk about some other plugs later on, but before we just run down lots and lots of plugs for 10 minutes or so, let's just get into some of these topics. Let's go and talk about babies. They're kind of ugly. They're round. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about... We've got some baby talk going on this week. The Bella twins, earlier in the past week or so, since we did the last hot tags, both announced that they are both pregnant. They're about a week or so apart for due dates. And Mike and Maria Kanellis had their second child. So baby fever kind of going on at the moment. I don't know if there's really all that much to talk about, because it's personal lives and stuff, but it's something on the gossipy side of things, so it's something worth mentioning. What do you guys think about the whole idea that the Bell twins are doing this at the same time? It's kind of neat.
So, I watched a video on this yesterday where they're kind of explaining, their initial reactions, and Nikki says that when she told Bree it was Thanksgiving, and Bree's first words were, "This is a fucking nightmare," because everybody's gonna think, "Oh, look at that, they planned this."
That's really gotta be horrible for the kid to know. Be like, I'm gonna have a kid. Oh my god, this kid's gonna be a nightmare.
Cool. Cool for Bree and Brian. They really wanted a second kid, apparently, and really special for Nikki, who I know that was a sticking point for her. So it's cool that she's having that experience. If I wasn't aware of what they were saying about it, I would absolutely think, my god, you even had to plan your pregnancies for the reality show? Because it just seems like this will now be a big focal point of something going forward for them.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything really to add beyond just like congratulating both of them for this. And yeah, because it's just like I don't know how you could like plan it in advance, because there's a lot of things that kind of have to happen that need to go pretty right. They're kind of out of your control, really. Like the initial thing, you're very much in control of, but past that point, it's like it has its own processes and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe one of them got like a sensor and like thought, maybe just like in their head, just think, "Oh my god, my sister might be pregnant. I better get myself pregnant right now." And that's. But other than that, yeah, just congrats to the both of them.
Yeah, how like they say people that are like twins have sort of like a telepathy going on because they had shared the same like cells and everything that goes along with that. Like, which one? I forget which one's first. Was it Bree, the one who got pregnant first?
Bree got pregnant first, and Nikki shortly after.
So like Bree gets pregnant again, and Nikki's like, "Oh my god, no, I don't want to be 2-0."
So according to Bree, it was the night before Brian left for the European tour, and she's like, "Yeah, that never happens. It's never that instant." And lo and behold,
So should we start taking bets on what animal that they're going to name the second kid, since the first one's Birdie?
So they're not going to know what kind of baby it's going to be until it's born, but Nikki is going to know. So really, it can be anything from another daughter named Robin to a son named Moose. We just don't know.
Or Joey, isn't that like a
Yeah, it's a kangaroo.
little
You can
kangaroo?
go with that.
Or there's so many. It could just be like Woodchuck, and it'd be like, wait, what?
Wouldn't
Well, he's
wouldn't
Chuck.
Brie wouldn't Brie call her second child B, just to stick with
That's
the brand?
true,
Oh,
Birdie
Birdie,
B.
yeah, you never know.
But you know,
I
you
thought that
could
was pre-planned.
you could get around that by having it be like Beatrice. It'd be like, oh, we call her B. But of course, you could have named the kid something other than Birdie. You know. But again, I'm somebody who tends to make fun of people that have like the weird ass names, and whether your name's Zevius or whatever it is, it's just sort of like you're trying really hard. Hopefully, Nikki doesn't go in that direction, and that's kind of be weird for Birdie too, because for now on, Nikki's kid and Bree's second kid is going to have this connection of being like, oh, we were like, kind of like born as like a pair sort of thing, and Birdie will be like, yeah, I came a little early. So,
Yeah, Birdie's gonna be like just the older one.
yeah, the oddball out. Mike and Maria, is their kid a daughter or a son?
You know, let me check on that real quick. I just know that they just had it, so I'm gonna go check.
Yeah, this
the
was one of
news
those
there.
like impromptu hot tags we added at the last second, so we didn't get a chance to look all that much into it. For anybody who's curious why we don't know, but that's still good, no matter what. Obviously, because
awesome.
it's not like
Carver,
they're
so it's a boy. Carver Mars Bennett.
Carver, like
Carver, yeah.
slightly odd name, but not too odd. It gets my seal of approval at the very least. Not that they give a shit about that.
Well, the middle name is Mars, so you had to get that celebrity. I can name my kid whatever in the middle.
Yeah, mostly though. Congrats to the families. Hopefully everything
that's
is
awesome.
super great with that, and good luck in the future with everything like that. Nothing to really break down too much.
And kudos to Mike. He's doing more NXT loops with Tony Nese as his partner, so he's getting to wrestle again.
You know that they apparently have a tag team name now.
What is it?
Team Absolute.
I don't like it, but you know what? As long as it's working for him.
That's all capital for the abs part. So I like it.
Yeah, I see what's going on here.
Let's talk about NXT UK. We have a couple new people into the mix. They've signed Candy Floss, who has popped up a couple different times here and there. They also have signed Dani Luna, who has wrestled, I think about like 2 or 3 matches or so. I know that I've seen the name pop up, and I don't really remember too much about her. Levi Muir, who I don't remember at all. And the tag team of Sam Stoker and Lewis Howley, otherwise known as Pretty Deadly. And I know that they've jobbed out a couple of different times, because I remember typing out those full names. But, yeah, we got a bunch of new people in the mix.
I feel like Levi has definitely worked some of the shows.
Completely blank on him. I don't remember for sure. So I don't even remember having any kind of impression. I do remember liking Candy Floss, thinking that they should sign her, and I think that Pretty Deadly had a pretty decent vibe to them. Dani Luna and Levi, I'm just kind of blanking on.
Well, Candy Floss, I think is pretty young, and she was very excited to have signed and received a lot of praise. So that's pretty cool. And it's good to see them growing the UK brand, because that's obviously going to be a big focal point for them moving forward, and they're going to need new people eventually.
Cal, any insight on these guys that you might know from being a little closer to the scene?
No, not really at all. Nothing more than anything that I've seen from any of them in NXT UK. I'm not an avid follower of the British independent scene because WWE killed it. So there's really not much to watch there anymore.
By the way, everybody, if you're hearing sirens in the background and generally bad,
Scott Steiner's coming.
Bad audio on my part, I apologize. Different mic setup, different computer setup, New York, it's one of those kind of things. So I apologize. The next time you guys are going to hear from us, it'll be something that we recorded in advance, so it'll be much better. Putting that out there. I don't know when the next siren's going to go on, but definitely, but before we end up finishing, because it's just every minute or so. Yeah, so I mean, thumbs up. They add more people into the mix. If they don't work out, they don't work out. If they do work out, awesome. But if you don't keep bringing in new people, then you never know who you're sleeping on. And I know that I'm sleeping on this Timothy Thatcher, who is reportedly signed, because I have no idea who this is, and I didn't even know that they had signed him until you mentioned it ahead of time, Rob. So who is Timothy Thatcher?
So he's about as pure wrestling as you get. He's very technically sound. He's done a lot with MLW and Evolve. I'm a fan of his stuff. If you like Walter, I think you'll like Timothy Thatcher. Just buy the books Pro Wrestling, and it'll be good.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I'm super familiar with any of his work, but I've seen like a few bits and pieces that he's in, and he's unspectacular, but his unspectacular nature is what is really good about him. Just the fact that he's got such excellent fundamentals that he doesn't really need to be flash in any sort of way. I know that,
Like Daniel Bryan in 2010.
yeah, I know that William Regal's been after him for a while, and he's 36, so he's been through the independent scene for a long, long time. Like, he wrestled for Evolve for a while, WXW. He's basically been around the ringer, and now it seems like they finally decided to bring him on board. Probably because, I don't know, maybe there's competition to sign people now. Now they have to do.
Yeah, now you actually have to, instead of the whole shit and get off the pot kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, he'll almost certainly just go to NXT to start with, but and I don't know what his prospects would be to progress past that. But yeah, it's good for him at the very least.
I want to transition this into something because Anthony Henry just announced that he wasn't going to be continuing with Evolve, and he basically said, "Hey, I'm 36. I got to do something now." And what I thought was most interesting is he said, even if you're with Evolve and they have the relationship with NXT, the wait list to get into NXT is already astronomical. So that's something that I thought was really telling.
Maybe there is no wait list and they just don't want him. And they're like, yeah, we'll get around to you. Like, we got this guy and this guy and this guy and this girl and this girl and that guy and this girl and, that kind of thing that they would prioritize above him.
I imagine there could be a waiting list, but it's not like it's going to prevent you from signing someone you really want. So, we've got like 30 other people on the list, so you're just going to have to to wait a few years. Just I assume like if they want someone badly enough, that will push them to the front of the queue.
It's chronological. They actually had Timothy Thatcher on the list 3 years ago. His number just got called.
Yeah, it's like you take a number at like the deli, and they're like, wow, we really want you, Anthony Henry, but you're number 36, and we still got a lot of other people that we just haven't gotten to yet. So, number 4, would you like your NXT contract? Can't imagine that that's the case. It's probably just like, here's a whole list of people that we're interested in, and if we feel like we can wait a little bit and they're not going to get snatched up, then we'll wait, because we don't want to sign 50 people to contracts and just be spending all that money and all that time and effort. But if somebody starts getting a little bit of some speculation that they might go elsewhere, then okay, let's speed them up to the process now.
Yeah, I just think it's something to consider.
Let's talk contracts for the WWE main roster. Let's more specifically talk about the Revival turning down their no offer for a contract. And this is one of those things where some reports say they were offered $700,000 apiece. Some reports say that was closer to $1 million apiece. So who knows which thing's right, or if any of them is right. But the idea, reportedly, allegedly, whatever you want to specify it, is that they were offered more contracts to sign again, and when they are up around April or so, that they said no, they still just want to leave, that they requested their release again, and they're good with going, as we kind of expected.
Well, I believe the last offer that was made was like $550 a piece, which would total out to a little more than $1 million for the both of them. if they did bump that up, the $750 a piece sounds about right. I can say it's very much confirmed. They turned it down. They want out. I don't blame them. They are an act that will be utilized in AEW. They'll be utilized in Ring of Honor. They'll be utilized in the NWA if they want to be for a short period of time. There's more to offer them. Somebody said, oh, well, they did turn down the money. And my immediate response was, well, did they offer them solid creative or anything about their in-ring stuff? Because money, listen, you will come to a point in your life where you're going to have to take the money, but you'll also have a point in your life where you can forgo the money for happiness within your career.
Yeah, I can't say if they want to leave in order to get some more, I guess, creative storylines or get more of a focus. Not so much because I don't think their moving is to try and get more focus on them per se or to be bigger stars. It's just because they want to be part of a tag team division that seems to be going somewhere. And I mean, that's mainly been their issue. For any of the reports I've read, their issue isn't the fact that they're not champions all the time. It's because the tag team division means jack shit in WWE.
Yeah.
Well, they're literally called the Revival because they are the tag team revival. Like, tag teams don't mean anything in WWE. And when they went to NXT, they made tag teams mean something. And I can't imagine that they get any response when asked other than, tag teams don't draw. Sorry, pal. And if I'm them, yeah, I want to leave because that's a slap in my face. I'm not looking to be Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart and break out as a single. I have this guy here. We work very well together. We want to be part of something special. It's not there, so they need to go.
And I mean, there's probably a certain level of understanding as well that should be at the very least. Neither of them would be able to break out and be a world title holder on the singles division in WWE. Like, Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder work extremely well as a tag team. But I don't think that anybody's clamoring to see that Scott Dawson singles feud. Or, Dash Wilder make his way into the main event of WrestleMania against Brock Lesnar. You know what I mean? And if you can make the tag team division be just as good of a draw, like the way that it should be. I mean, it really, like, if you look at the mid-card titles, there's nothing that indicates that the mid-card titles should be lower than what the other ones are. But we just know that that's the case. The Intercontinental Championship, by all means, could be the main event of a card if you made it seem like the Intercontinental title was just as much. Like, we talked about this before. We were talking about the, actually, were we doing this on Wrestling is 2020, or were we doing this on something else? Because we might have not actually talked about this for people that haven't listened to it.
No, I think we were talking about this on something related to the women, which I don't think it was 2020.
Yeah, if we did talk about it before, you've heard it. If we didn't, you'll hear it soon. The idea that there's the weight class, so it was the mailbag. That's what it was.
Right.
Yeah, that, like, Callum had brought up the idea that, well, in UFC, the welterweight could be the main thing. It's the draw is the people and the matches and the feuds and the fights and whatever like that, more so than this title is the top title and everything else is underneath it. And if you treat the tag team division as being like, well, you're only a stepping stone to get singles feuds across, what does it matter if you're the head of the tag team division? They've had multiple Raw and SmackDown tag team titles over the past 2 years, and it didn't amount to jack shit. So why would they want to sign, Yeah, you're going to earn more money than what you were doing before, but do you want to stay here for another 5 years and ultimately do nothing that you're proud of? Or do you want to go to AEW, maybe not earn as much, but
work a lot less?
Yeah, work a hell of a lot less. Probably be involved with people that you're just as good of friends with, if not, have more in line with. not feel like you're walking on eggshells, and be able to have that creativity and feel like you're doing something and helping build another brand and an alternative. In the process, raising your volume and raising your stock too. Because shit, if you want to go back to WWE in 3 years and you don't have some kind of contract that's preventing you from doing that, then at that point WWE is going to want to bring you back at $1 million a piece or something like that, you know?
Yeah. And given when their contracts expire, my guess would be All Out is a solid debut date for the both of them. But that's me being completely speculative. But it's clear that they need to go, right? Like, nobody here is going to argue, I don't know, maybe they should give WWE one more chance.
Not if what they're after is like good creative, then of course not. But it's just one of those situations where I wouldn't blame them for taking the money, because it's a lot of money, and they've got families to consider. But they're not exactly going to get paid peanuts to go to AEW.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that AEW won't hold them over a barrel saying, well, you've left WWE, so you've got no other option but to come to us, so why don't you sign for 100k or whatever? I don't think they don't seem like that sort of company.
Yeah, this isn't the type of indies where they give you a free hot dog.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm sure they'll be well compensated there as well. So yeah, if they want to go and be part of a tag team division that could potentially main event big shows, then AEW is probably the right place to go for that.
So I think Dawson's contract expires right around WrestleMania, and Wilder has another 10 weeks after that, I think.
Yeah, he has stuff tacked on for when he had his I can't remember what injury it was.
I think it was a jaw.
Yeah, maybe the broken jaw injury, yeah.
So that would put them at the very least around like June or so.
But then they'll have the 90-day no compete after that, which I assume.
Well, no, not if their contract expires.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah, and I don't think that Dawson would come in on his own.
No, they wouldn't come in. They'd come in as a pair, obviously. Yeah. But if for some reason they'd still had that clause in, then obviously Dawson could come in a lot earlier than not. Maybe just come in, at least sign with the company. Because I assume they'd sign separate contracts.
My guess is they do have a stop at the National Wrestling Alliance for a bit, just to check that off the bucket list for them. But I ultimately see them Young Bucks at All Out.
It wouldn't shock me at all if in that April, May, June type range, if Dawson did do like a guest spot at NWA. Because NWA seems to have a little bit of a partnership. Not like a partnership, but I mean, there's some kind of interaction between some other different types of companies. It's almost like people go, you could work with NWA, who gives a shit? That kind of thing.
Well, essentially everything's working at the moment through Marty Scurll, through all of these different promotions. He's got links to AEW, he's got links to New Japan, he's head booker of Ring of Honor, and now he's got links to NWA as well. He's going to be fighting for their World Championship. So essentially Marty Scurll is playing chess with about 4 or 5 different wrestling companies right now.
Huh.
Marty Scurll is the smartest dude in the business right now. He knows that he's essentially the guy who AEW would need to complete their elite group, and he's just bringing all these other companies together and making the wrestling business stronger while in the process, and I'm sure he's making a lot of money too.
I kind of see Marty Scurll's, I mean, I don't know him personally, so I can't vouch for him or anything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if his end game was to try and get like essentially a conglomerate of AEW, Ring of Honor, part of New Japan and stuff like that, the NWA, maybe even Impact Wrestling and people like that together, and create kind of a super force to go against WWE.
Either that, or he's just being a villain and taking everybody for what they can.
Well, he is.
I mean, that would be on brand for him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah. We talked about this.
We mentioned Ring of Honor, and Tony, you might not know much about this, but Callum might. They're bringing back the Pure title. Any thoughts on that, Callum?
Not particularly.
I think it's cool.
What is the pure title?
Essentially, that was
So-
the title that was put together for kind of like a pure wrestling standpoint. I think that's
And,
kind
like-
of like this old like stuff. I know Daniel Bryan held it for quite a while.
And like there are certain rules, like you only get 3 rope breaks per match, things like that. It's very old school Ring of Honor. It started with Punk and AJ were in the first match to crown the pure champion. AJ would end up beating Punk, and Bryan was the last one, having merged it with their world title after beating McGuinness. So I think it's cool. Nice little boost for Ring of Honor.
Now, are they bringing that back just to have like a story for people to talk about? Like, look at this gimmick. Remember that? Pay attention to Ring of Honor, or is it like something above that?
I think it's, hey, Ring of Honor has really lost its way. Let's try to see if we can incite some of the old fire. I think it's a Marty thing, essentially.
Before we move on to the next set of topics, let's toss out a couple quick plugs. If you want us to do anything that we are not quite doing yet and we don't have the time to do, hit up that Patreon. And that's a way for you to show your support and to motivate us to be able to find the time to be able to do those things. So whether it's $1, which goes a long way, especially the more people do it, or $5, which is ad block forgiveness, or $10, which is the Darkcast access tier. Those are Patreon exclusive extra bonus episodes, and we got 2 of them up already. We did 2 of those in January, so we're going to do 1 or 2 of them in February, or maybe even more, depending on, the more people that donate to that tier and above that, because if you donate more than that, then you get access to that as well. Then the more chances that we'll have more Darkcasts and stuff. And they're a little bit more off the wall, a little bit less edited down, a little bit less, I guess, like censored is what you could put it on there. There's also the mailbag priority, which is when, if you didn't get a chance to ask us questions on the Q1 mailbag and you don't want to wait until the Q2 mailbag, then that is something that you should take advantage of, because if you do donate to that tier and you've got a bunch of questions that you want asked, you want answered, not asked, you're the one asking, then if you hit that tier or higher, then we will answer them. That's kind of the point of that whole thing. And there's also the Pick Your Poison tier, which you can donate to, like, specifically request a gimmick of sorts or a feature that you really want us to do. Like, hey, you guys haven't done Superstar Scores, Big Boss Man, something like that. Then, you donated the money toward it, you get what you want. And if another way that you can toss a little bit of spare change our way and actually get something out of it is the merchandise shops. Now that is Redbubble and TeePublic for Smark Out Moment, Fanboys Anonymous, and A Mango Tees. So check them out. If there's anything you're interested in, pick it up. It's kind of the point. Talk more plugs later on, but let's move on to more hot tags. Let's talk about the idea that there might be suspensions coming. We do have Andrade currently away with a 30-day suspension, and in December there was Primo and Robert Roode, but now there are rumors that there may be more suspensions to come. And maybe even by the time that you listen to this, we might have some kind of news about that. I don't know. Currently, the rumors, which may be completely unfounded, are Rey Mysterio and Samoa Joe.
Joe is a lie.
There's nothing to that one? Because
that was flat out denied by a very top source.
Okay, that's good. Because he had that whole injury thing, and that was kind of suspicious. But the same thing's going on with Rey Mysterio right now. They did that angle with him getting DDT'd by Angel Garza, and that's how they wrote off Andrade, so maybe it's Rey Mysterio. Maybe it's just somebody completely random, like Heath Slater or something.
Well, the tweet from WrestleVotes was very like, it's the Southern California water, which made people jump the gun and go, oh, Samoa Joe got suspended.
It's SoCal Uncensored.
Yeah, that's right. They suspended them from the other company. I hope it's not Ray. This would potentially be his 3rd, technically, because he got suspended in 2009 and in 2012, but different contract. Not sure how that works. And yeah, like I said, Joe is a lie.
Yeah, it's just I think the more interesting story about this, because we haven't obviously got any confirmation as of yet who may be suspended, if anyone is suspended, is that where the hell are all these suspensions coming from all of a sudden? They went about like 2 or 3 years without suspending anybody, and now we've already had 3, and now we could have more coming in the space of a couple of months.
I asked about that, and I asked, somebody I know just to see if they could get more clarification, because I realized that there was like a whole year, maybe even more so, where there was none of these, and now all of a sudden that's becoming a thing again, and it's making me wonder why. They're wrestlers. It's not like, I get they want to keep their talent healthy, but when you're talking about performance enhancing drugs, it's not a real competition. That's always struck me as weird that they're like, well, you can't take these to enhance your body in a very, body and visual business. I get that over the years there's been bad like addiction stuff, and of course there's the Benoit tragedy, but that's always struck me as weird,
Yeah, it's not as legitimate of a sport where you have to worry about like the actual competitive side of it, but it's just a PR thing. It's always been.
Oh, it's a mixture of PR thing. I think there's also maybe a genuine worry that if you open the door a crack, someone will kick it open.
Yeah.
And like history, they have tried in the past, like multiple times, to institute some sort of policy like this, and this has been the one that stuck out of all the other ones. Like that was them doing like real PR work in the past, and then just neglecting it over the course of once the heat died down, they just went away with it. People got really like buffed up again because on steroids, and then a tragedy happened and they reverted back. That's kind of like been the cycle, and they've decided to actually stick to this one because of, well, essentially due to it coming off the back of the biggest tragedy in the company's history. So I don't think that it's, if it was controlled and like measured properly, I don't see like there's any real problem with it. But I don't know how. It's because I can't vouch for that kind of thing because I don't know how dangerous steroids can be.
Yeah,
or
that's
any
true.
other performance-enhancing drugs.
The three of us aren't really knowing that.
Yeah. So I don't know whether there is a healthy way of doing it. I know obviously people use, steroids is a treatment for numerous diseases or numerous illnesses or other treatments, but I don't know how easy it is to control and maintain a healthy level of doing it without damaging your body in any way.
Everything is healthy in moderation, and I wonder
even cocaine.
Bad choice of words.
Yeah, don't drink bleach or Drano in moderation either.
Yeah, but I wonder if there's a certain level of like tolerance for the wellness policy. Like, okay, if we find more than this amount, then you're suspended. But you can take steroids up to this. Are the inner workings of the wellness policy public knowledge?
I don't think so.
No, well, that's the that's the thing about it, is the fact that not only is that not really public knowledge, they also never acknowledge why these people are suspended, unless they feel like they have a really just cause and they need to do it. We don't know what Andrade's been suspended for.
Right.
We don't know what Robert Roode was suspended for. We know that Primo claims that his one wasn't like accurate, but we don't know what he was suspended for in the first place. And
failure to provide a sample, I believe.
Yeah, that one we can pretty much write off.
Yeah, but and it's likely that whoever ends up being suspended off the back of this, if anyone is, we won't know what they were suspended for either. And I almost feel like that lends itself, opens it up too much for speculation. And I feel like WWE thinks that they're doing the right thing in not revealing what they're being suspended for, when that's actually probably hurting the issue more than it's helping.
Because they used to. Like, there are plenty of instances in the past where people would actually say, like, it was like Tetra, whatever, this kind of, like, not like that, layman would be, would understand what the hell the differences are, but at the very least, some people would be able to understand that. And like, for instance, if you've been checking out smark.moment.com recently, one of the newer writers for the site, Ethan, he is a doctor, and he has the ability to be able to process some of these things better than a lot of us, because he's familiar with the fact that, this type of a bone spur means this, or, whatever it is like that. So when it comes to not knowing the differences between the different types of medications and stuff, that's already hard enough to understand if you're a doctor, let alone if you're the person involved in that treatment. And then if you're this extra level outside of the mix of just a regular person like we are, and like the differences between levels and stuff. Look at people that have like diabetes, or people that have this level of blood sugar or insulin or any of that kind of stuff. Like, I got to imagine that the wellness policy is hard to navigate, because one person might have a higher level of testosterone, and it just might be the fact that their body makes that, and it's not that they're doing some kind of steroid thing, or you tested positive for having a higher dosage of this thing, and it's like, okay, well, then you've been eating this weird fruit that gives you that. Like, that stuff's gotta be confusing and difficult to figure out the balance between. So it would help if they actually said more behind that. But then again, who's really helping? Is it just like the people like us going, oh, okay, so they got suspended for this steroid, and then that's it?
Well, but it's caused them issues in the past, where Paige and Roman Reigns came out and said, I was prescribed this, and this triggered the suspension. That's fucked up. And then you have cases like Primo, where he's just like, well, they're just suspending me because I told them no. I offered to work with them and do it in Puerto Rico, but I wasn't going to fly just to take a piss test.
Yeah, and if you don't know that about Primo, then you just assume that he was just doing steroids. So that hurts his image. And then,
of course, there's people like John Cena who probably don't have the same rules apply. It's very weird. I think they should be more open about it.
Well, at least as far as right now, we don't know if there actually are any suspensions that are going out there. And if so, who? And if who, why? Where any of the other ones? Where, when, all that. Sometimes why. But the Rey Mysterio thing is definitely suspicious. So it wouldn't shock me. He has been suspended in the past, so maybe there's something going on there. Maybe there's something to do with Humberto Carrillo. Maybe there's something to do with Eric Young. I mean, they could have written people out off of TV in different ways. They could have just completely ignored them, and maybe it's like, this person's on SmackDown, we just haven't seen anything yet, or, it's completely off the wall speculation stuff, and once there actually is anything solid to talk about, then of course we'll address it at that point. Before we talk about Raw, before we talk about our main topic, which is going to be the co-presidents, I'm going to go back and talk about two other things that were on the WWE Network. These were the Ride Along season premiere, Lost in New York. It had Carmella and Corey Graves in one car with her dog Pancake, and Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross in another one. And there was also Break It Down with Kevin Owens. Now, I watched both, but I'm assuming that you guys didn't watch both. But did you guys watch either of them?
I didn't see either. I don't know about Callum, but I didn't see either.
No, of course I didn't watch any of this stuff. You know me well enough by now.
I gotta be curious.
You never know. Yeah, sometimes you guys watch a random 24 or something like that. But don't watch Ride Along. It's not worth it. So, the see it or skip it thing, definitely skip it. Bliss and Cross, I don't remember a damn thing that was interesting about that at all. Carmella and Corey and Pancake, There's a couple moments where it's kind of funny that Corey's getting stressed out about bad people walking around on the streets of New York and everything, but ultimately, yeah, just not all that interesting. Nothing really happens, no real funny stories. It's just not a really good episode. So skip that one. Break it down with Kevin Owens, though. It's only 11 minutes or 12 minutes long, and it's actually kind of good. It's the type of thing where he's just looking back at a couple of his biggest wins and just talking about how, like, it was really important for him to be with, like, Finn Balor, to call Finn Balor up after he won the Universal Championship, because he felt like he's only winning that because Finn Balor got injured, and it's like, he told him, hey, this is your title, I'm just holding it until you get back. And he has a quick moment where he says, and this isn't verbatim, but he says something like, Triple H giving him the Universal Championship could have gone in so many different ways, and it's disappointing that WWE completely dropped the ball with that. And you can tell that there's this level of like, wow, this was great, and they fucked it up. And that's cool, because it shows that Kevin Owens understands that as well. And it's not just, I won the title and that's the only important thing in the world. It's, this is a good storyline, and creative screwed it up, guys. So
Well, I did see a clip from that about his match at Battleground with Sammy.
Yep, about the McMahon stuff.
Yeah, where he's like, first of all, we fought each other forever, so it's hard to know what is even working. But that one you knew worked, and he says, I came back and I just screamed, and that Vince pulled me in for a hug, and Vince and I don't hug. So, like, that's when I knew it was special. I thought that was a cool story.
Yeah, I recommend checking it out. Like I said, it's like 12 minutes long. So you put it on the background, listen to it. By the time that it's over, you'll feel like it's, you listen to a couple commercials and that's about it. But skip the ride along. That's definitely not worth it. Let's talk about Raw. We've been doing our Raw reviews on here. And it's not right after Raw now because we're recording this Tuesday afternoon, but I had a little bit of time to think more on what happened on Raw. And so, quick breakdown. We started off with Randy Orton starting the show with a promo, sorta, because he kind of didn't cut a promo. He just said, I owe you all an not an apology, an excuse or an explanation for what I did to Edge, and he says, I can't do this, and walks off. It was like 15 minutes long, and it was mostly him standing there not doing anything, and I still loved it.
Loved it so much. Randy, when Randy he's almost like a full-time Brock, in the sense that he can be really boring or really, really good if he's motivated. And I feel like we're getting a motivated Randy, and it's real good.
Yeah, I have to admit, when I don't watch Raw from bell to bell, so to speak. I watch the YouTube clips to keep up with it because I can't sit there for 3 hours and watch something. It's just not going to work, especially something which at least has been better the last couple of months, but it's still not, like, I don't feel was worthwhile enough viewing to go through the entire thing. So I didn't get to sit there for the entire 15 minutes, which is good because I probably would have gone insane. Just like, because yeah, it's a good story. The idea of like, oh, he's just teasing the crowd and he's not actually going to tell you anything. They've done that many times before, but it works for this story because they're just trying to stall it out a little while. But yeah, but I don't feel like it's worth wasting 15 minutes time, especially because, as we'll talk about later, they really had to rush the main event because of time issues. So maybe they could have just shortened this down to 10 minutes instead.
Yeah, I mean, I buy into that. And it's not the type of thing that you should watch now knowing that. It's, it's in the moment that you're wondering what he's going to say. And if somebody tells you, hey, for 13 minutes he doesn't say anything, you're not going to be like, oh my god, I need to see that segment. Not the same as the Roman Reigns, It's My Yard Now, where you can really get the boos going on. They did have the boos, but it wasn't the same type of vibe.
Yeah,
but
the crowd makes that one.
Yeah. And what I like about this, more so than something like the Charlotte situation, that to me speaks of not doing anything because we don't want to do anything, as opposed to the Orton thing is, I'm telling a story of how emotional I am. Charlotte saying, and I'm not going to tell you, is just wasting time.
It is quite indicative that the best promo probably of the night was a guy just standing there in the middle of the ring not saying anything.
That's true.
But it's also very clear that Randy's an older guy. Older people know how to work emotion without saying anything. And that's something that still a lot of young talents don't have.
Well, then we decided, well, we haven't done anything for about 15 minutes. Let's get some action in the mix. Let's do a complete carbon copy and paste of the Liv Morgan and Lana match. They might have done a literal repeat, because it seemed like it was about 3 minutes long and it ended with the same move and all that. Complete waste of time.
Until you get to the aftermath.
Even that, because the aftermath for this was Ruby Riott comes out, and for a split second, Liv Morgan's all happy, and then Ruby attacks Liv, and then Lana's like, hey, fuck you, haha. This did nothing for me. In fact, actually, if anything, this made me feel even less interested about this. Now I feel like, wow, you're just now dragging Ruby Riott into the mix too.
Well, I actually got the feeling of, okay, so the Rusev Lashley portion of this, maybe even the Lana Liv portion of this, is just quietly dead now. And, Lana was like, ha, I win. But I don't feel like next week it'll be Lana saying, I brought Ruby Riott back. Because if you did, then you should have had her help you not lose the match. She's stupid. But, I don't know. I got the feeling that weird love rectangle is just dead. Because even Lashley cut a promo and was just sort of like, yeah, that was Lana's match. That's Lana. I'm going to fight Brock Lesnar. I feel like this whole thing is dead now.
In terms of the match was just what it was. You can't really expect too much out of those two. And at least Ruby Riott coming back will give a chance for Liv Morgan to have some better matches. And yeah, it's good to have Ruby Riott back. I don't know whether she was needed on Raw, just because of how weak the division is on SmackDown. She probably could have been of more use there. But yeah, she's here now and going into a feud with Liv Morgan, so I can't say I'm like stoked for it, but it's an upgrade in quality for them.
Do you think we get some Sarah Logan interjection at some point?
They'll definitely do that.
Potentially, and then it's just a point of, well, I think by the end of that feud, you'll either be thinking, okay, we've got some people that have potential going forward, or you'll be sat thinking they probably should just not have broken up the Riot Squad in the first place.
Now, I never liked the Riot Squad, and when they were going to break them up, I was very happy about that. But I feel like this is them going back to a well that didn't quite work because they made it even worse. And I hate this Liv Morgan and Lana thing. The Rusev stuff is going nowhere. At this point, if they end, like if Lashley and Lana break up and Rusev is just like, success, I don't care. And it goes to show that they didn't have a game plan enough to actually make this a good storyline, because I think that this has just been horrendous from the start. And I really feel like I pity Liv Morgan's position because they screwed her up. If she would have came in under almost any other circumstance, I think, unless, of course, you're specifically trying to make it worse. Like, if she comes in and she's got, like, some kind of racist gimmick or something where it's like, that can't possibly work. But, like, this idea that they spent months putting her on the shelf so she could come back to be kind of in a love story with Lana, but it's not really even because they're not going full force into it. They botched it horribly. And now if they're just going to pivot to be like, and now Ruby Riott's going to feud with her, shit, you should have just had Liv Morgan come back and wrestle a bunch of nobodies, and then Ruby Riott attacks her. You didn't need to have any connection at all with this Lana story. Absolutely horrendous. And I'm not the biggest fan of Liv Morgan in the ring still. I think that the time that she spent away, she didn't learn enough to make it be like, okay, she really is taking the next steps in her career. And I never
Well,
really...
how do you know? She's been in the ring for 6 minutes with Lana.
Unless like she's really holding back in that, and when she starts wrestling somebody like, Natalia or somebody like that and proves me wrong, so far what she's shown me hasn't been impressive. That's what I'm saying.
Well, Batista was great. Everybody had to carry him. Maybe she could be like that, where you put her in the ring with Ruby, and maybe she'll be great.
Ruby, I've never been the absolute biggest fan of either. I mean, I don't dislike Ruby at all. I think that she hasn't been tapped into, and she has a lot more potential than what's happened. But I don't feel like she's going to get anything good out of this either. I really am not looking forward to Liv Morgan beats Sarah Logan next week, and then Ruby Riott attacks Liv. Or, we're getting down to, they're finally going to fight. It's Ruby Riott versus Liv Morgan. And think about it this way. If the match is great, awesome. If the match is terrible, what's going to happen? They're going to go, that was a thing we tried. And it's just disappointing. Whether you keep the Lana stuff involved or not, that was a complete waste. And I don't think that this Ruby Riott thing is going to work out all that well either. I feel so dead about this whole thing. It's very disappointing.
I'm slightly optimistic about the Ruby aspect, but if the Lana thing just quietly dies, I'm going to be very sad that they wasted several top segments on Raw on a segment that just went away.
Then we had Drew McIntyre cut a promo. He basically, it's going to be one of those things where over the next bunch of weeks, we're going to get lots of reminders of just, hey, remember guys, these two are fighting at WrestleMania. Not much to it. But Mojo Rawley is accompanied by Riddick Moss, and he gets a Claymore, and that's it. The match is a complete squash. It's fine.
I do not want a quick match between Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. If anybody can have like an actual lengthy match with Lesnar, I feel like Drew is a good guy to do it, and I hope that this isn't like a setup for ding 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 Claymore. Oh my God, he beat Brock Lesnar.
I don't think they're going to do that. The fact that they did that with Rollins means that they shouldn't, at the very least.
I don't think they'll do that. I don't think the match will go any longer than like 7 minutes. But I think that's the Brock Lesnar match. And Brock Lesnar's good at the shortish, let's just do like really big moves, a lot of power stuff, a lot of finishers, and that's what the crowd wants to see from him. Well, the majority of people at the very least want to see from him.
If you had to guess, what would you say his longest match has been since 2012?
Styles.
The Royal Rumble.
Oh, well, yeah.
Right, yeah. Sure.
In terms of an actual match, I think it's probably the first match he had against Cena, or one of the matches against Triple H.
I'm gonna look into that.
But
Sure.
But in terms of this, I mean, it didn't take them long to get bored of the Mojo Rawley thing. So
I hope that's not what this means. I hope it was just like, we couldn't squash, Zack Ryder that night. He had something else going on.
Well, just love the fact that they give Mojo Rawley the 24/7 title and say that he's going to treat it seriously, and then just have him lose in 7 seconds to Drew McIntyre. And like a week after he beats the Good Brothers in a 2-on-1 handicap match, they're really, really justifying the $500,000 a piece they're paying for their contracts for just having them lose in a matter of minutes against one guy.
Yeah. That's typical WWE, though. Not surprised. I was surprised, though, that they didn't have the 24/7 title change hands.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't have anyone come out to claim it after that. But maybe the gimmick should be that somebody tried to do it and Riddick Moss prevented them from doing it, because essentially isn't that what his role is, to be a defensive tackle for Mojo Rawley?
Well, he wasn't ready for fucking Drew McIntyre, that's for sure.
Yeah.
No, and the fact that Drew McIntyre had absolutely zero interest in the 24/7 championship shows kind of what status it's at right now.
another example. So 3 segments in here. You got a promo that is nuanced and interesting, but a lot of people probably would be annoyed that he didn't say anything. You got this awful Lana situation, and then the Ruby Riott stuff, and then you got this 24/7 title thing. I feel like a lot of stuff on this episode of Raw was just poorly written. It wasn't necessarily that it was like a bad episode, like we've had some like really bad ones in the past, but it was almost just like somebody was writing this as if they didn't know how to write. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, like why wouldn't Drew McIntyre at least want to be involved in the 24/7 title picture? That means that the title looks bad, and if you don't see that, then maybe you're the type of writer that sets things up that goes nowhere, like, Chekhov's gun should be a rule. Or you're ignoring the fact that Riddick Moss was supposed to show up and do this kind of thing, and now it's been 2 weeks and he hasn't really accomplished that. So now in the 2 weeks, he's basically a dead character. Way to go. You just killed this guy. 24/7 title. Still doesn't mean anything. Mojo Rawley. Job him out. Why? You couldn't have jobbed out, I don't know. Like, who are some of the people that we have on the Raw roster? We had Eric Young show up at some point throughout the night,
Yeah.
But, like, at that point, yeah, why not have Eric Young be the one that takes that Claymore? Or...
Because he had to take the Black Mass.
Yeah, anybody else could have taken the Black Mass, too.
Well, no, Buddy Murphy.
Majorly could have.
Well, Buddy Murphy's a serious deal right now. Cedric is a face, so you can't job him out to either Black or Drew. I think it was just a matter of a really poorly positioned roster, and I guess EC3's off the radar. But unfortunate for Mojo, who was looking good for a couple weeks there.
Seems like he's losing his mojo once again.
Damn it, Tony.
Then we had a very long 6-man tag team elimination match, which I actually, when I was doing the coverage for this, I didn't even know that it was an elimination match until the first elimination happened. I must have missed that. And when the first pinfall happened, I'm like, really? Wow, they're doing this? Okay. Oh shit. No, it's elimination. That makes more sense. And it ended up being that Buddy Murphy and AOP defeated Kevin Owens and the Viking Raiders. And they did a whole story where the one, Eric, was pinned, and then Ivar was taken out for a supposed injury. So Kevin Owens had to fight his way through the 3 people, and it was Razor that got the final pin.
That weird.
Yeah, I was very much in that situation thinking, okay, he'll take out both members of AOP and it'll be Buddy that beats him. So I was shocked about that, and I actually liked that quite a bit. It's cool to see something kind of take you by surprise like that. And Razor getting a pin, that helps him. So I liked it.
I agree, I liked it.
Yeah, this match for what I saw of it was good. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit surprising that it's a member of AOP that won it, but they are big. So I guess they can do that every now and again. And Owens was 3-on-1 for most of the match. So I think they're telling this story now with Owens that in every match that he has, he ends up being completely outnumbered because his teammates all get broken down by Rollins and his crew. So it'll probably set up quite nicely for when, more seemingly, we're going to get the Rollins-Owens match at WrestleMania.
Do you think that they're going to do something where he's like, these tag team partners of mine haven't been working out, and I got these new people that are going to be tagging up with me, and they're going to the ones that like save the day, kind of thing?
Either that, or the story is going to be that Owens is going to take them out by one and leave Rollins alone for WrestleMania.
You really think they're going to carry it through?
I don't trust in the idea that we're getting Punk and Rollins, and at that point, what's Rollins going to do?
Yeah, I think they'll keep this going forward until WrestleMania, because I don't see either of these two doing anything better at WrestleMania.
Then we had Aleister Black defeat Eric Young. Quick match. Nothing really too much to talk about there. He cut another promo afterward about how he's just going to pick a fight with people. It's a copy of last week.
Aleister Black shouldn't talk. And it's not even because he's a bad promo. It's because he didn't talk for ages in NXT and he was so much better.
Yeah, I agree.
Let his actions speak for him,
Especially if the promos he's going to cut are going to be these overly worded, poetic.
Oh yeah, it's so terrible.
This is my emo notebook type of stuff.
Well, you know, whoever's working on this is like he feels like he's a big deal because he's got a writing degree or something like that, and so he's trying to put he's like, open up the encyclopedia one night and he's just tossing words into this guy's promo. It makes no sense. Nobody in the crowd is really paying attention to what he's saying because he's using words with 5 syllables in it.
It's the same type of promos that Bray Wyatt used to cut, where it's just, let's have a lot of flowery language that says nothing. It's all fluff. Instead of saying, because really, essentially, if you want to, God damn it, I was going to say boil it down. If you want to strip this to the bare essentials, that's a better way to put it. Struggling as all hell to not say that right then. If you want to do that, what did Black say? He said, yeah, I'm about to go fight some people. And it really, all you needed to have him say, if anything, which he didn't need to say anything because he said this last week, is for him to say, I am going to turn this locker room upside down. But instead, it's like, on the scales of a menagerie, is what it's like, oh, are you trying to be fucking Ultimate Warrior here? It doesn't need to be all this crap. And it's just, you know, read my fan fiction, that kind of thing. I didn't really like that at all. Weird after that was a segment where Humberto Carrillo came out, and then Zelina Vega came out, accompanied by Angel Garza, and they didn't have a match. Turned out to be a beatdown segment, where Rey Mysterio saves Humberto Carrillo, which turns into a match between Garza and Mysterio, which then ends with Garza hitting the DDT on Mysterio on the exposed concrete, which... Does everybody just want to do this now?
Yeah.
Is this like some kind of rule with like this whole collective that it's just like our go-to is just DDT on the concrete, and we're gonna have 12 people do this same move, and that's the storyline heading into WrestleMania, is just like we're having an exposed concrete DDT match or something?
Yeah. And it certainly looks like that's the way they're going with it. I like Garza in the stable with Zelina and Andrade if they continue it that way. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, Angel Garza came in one night. He's completely fresh-faced to most of the audience, and he's already, like, the difference in how finished an article he is compared to Humberto Carrillo is so staggering.
Staggering is exactly the word that I was thinking, because it's night and day. And
he has got so much charisma. Like, he is... And, I mean, he's got Zelina now as his, I guess, a manager as well. And she's obviously a great promo, but he's a great promo as well. He seems to speak better English than Carrillo does as well, which can only be a positive. But yeah, it's just so obvious that, okay, this is the star out of this feud that's going to go ahead. And who knows, we might not even see him stick around beyond until like for a while, and then Andrade comes back and he might be out of the picture again.
I think they'll quickly shuffle these two together as a makeshift tag team for whenever they need one.
I mean, realistically, the story should be that, yeah, they're going to tag team up for a little while, and then Angel Garza and Andrade feud.
Does Zelina go with Andrade, or does she stay with Garza?
I think I would rather her stay with Andrade.
I mean, I would as well, but either way, it can't really do too much wrong. It depends which one you want to have as the babyface, and I think Garza has more range as the babyface.
See, I'm gonna say Andrade can probably now, not as opposed to when he debuted in NXT, he can probably pull off babyface. Garza is so good as a charismatic heel.
This makes me really wish that they would have gone in a different direction with Carrillo over the past few months. Because if they would have had Carrillo join Zelina and Andrade and put Angel Garza in there, shit, Garza and Carrillo as a tag team, I'm cool with. And Andrade as like the mid-carder or fighting for the world title kind of a thing.
That could have been a good tagged with Mendoza.
That was Carrillo.
Okay. I
Even
knew
if
it was one of the two.
even if you want to go in that direction, if you want to say let's have a stable of all this like Hispanic connection, that Mendoza and Carrillo were Dynamex in NXT. Put those two in a tag team, have Garza be the mid-carder, and have Andrade be the main eventer. There's your stable of 4. You've got your mouthpiece and Zelina Vega, who can also compete in the women's division. That's a hell of a stable right there. I'd be totally down for that.
I would also be down for it, but since you laid that out, I want to call attention to an interview Joe did with TalkSport, where he was asked about potentially joining a Samoan stable with Reigns and the Usos, and he's kind of like, I feel like just grouping people by their ethnicity in 2020 is wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe, but like, if they all happen to just get along,
And there's like a purpose to it too, because Carrillo cannot cut a promo, and Zelina can. Garza, he knows what he's doing, and Mendoza can't cut a promo. But Garza, Carrillo, and Mendoza, they can be supportive players for the bigger picture Andrade guy who has worked his way up towards the top. And Garza is enough on his own that he would play a good mid-carder and all there. Now, it'd be a little bit weird if somebody was like, oh, we also should throw in Rey Mysterio. We should also... Because then you're just doing it for the sake of what their ethnicity is. But Mysterio, completely separate. Totally unrelated to the mix. And I wouldn't be like going nuts over Carrillo and Mendoza saying like, well, now that they're a tag team in this stable that they should be tag team champions, but they could be a viable tag team. Because right now, Carrillo on his own, not doing it for me. Mendoza on his own, he's got a ceiling that doesn't even reach to the Cruiserweight title, I think. But if you put those in a tag team, maybe they get something more out of it.
I like Carrillo in the ring. I like Garza is tremendously charismatic. So is Andrade. I could really take or leave Mendoza, but they could all be paired together reasonably well.
Quick question. I mean, I kind of like your idea with this stable, but when do you put them on the lawnmowers?
That's after you release the other members of the Lucha House Party.
Oh, okay.
You have to have a feud, and the winning team, instead of it being like a Judy Bagwell on a pole match or something like that, you end up having it like there's different masks on different corners, and the winning team has to climb up a ladder, and instead of the briefcase, it's a lawnmower, and they can win the lawnmowers.
Whatever it takes to get Hoovy back.
Yeah,
that's all that matters.
Then
I like
Samoa
the fact
Joe.
that Tony can fit a lawnmower in a briefcase, but whatever.
No, instead of the briefcase, you just have a lawnmower hanging.
Oh, good lord.
That way, everybody could just go into this completely insensitive side of things, and then come right back around to the stable being like, alright, it's just a bunch of guys, and they're not necessarily grouped together for that reason. Because I don't like the idea of like Samoa Joe being in a thing with the Usos and the Reigns. It doesn't make sense to me. That's like, what would be the purpose, Joe becomes a mid-carder? He's main eventer. But he DDTs, he meaning Garza, pronouns pal, DDTs Mysterio on the exposed concrete. As we mentioned before, maybe this is a way to write him off for some kind of a suspension thing, or maybe it's just a matter of they just doing this. And I feel like, again, this was another poorly written segment. I like Garza. I'm interested in seeing where it goes with his connection with Zelina Vega. And Garza versus Mysterio on paper, cool. But I don't dig the Carrillo thing. I don't dig this whole DDT on the exposed concrete thing. I got a feeling that they're going to screw up Garza, and he's just going to be a sacrificial lamb in the meantime before Andrade comes around. I just don't have a whole lot of faith.
Somebody do a brainbuster, because alright, Andrade, that's his finish. Carrillo doing it to Andrade, fine, that's the other guy's finish. But couldn't you figure out another move for the other guy to do?
Well, why even bother taking out Rey Mysterio that way? Like, wouldn't it make more sense to take out Carrillo?
Well, I imagine he's going to get popped for this. the suspension thing.
Yeah, it's just like, to me though, it's like they inserted Rey Mysterio into a mix that he wasn't really. I mean, he was a part of it because Carrillo did help Mysterio, but it's all.
The question then is, what's in the concrete? Let's get these guys popped, because Andrade got popped real quick after hitting that concrete.
It's like, well, we tested you afterward, and you tested positive for concrete residue. You're gonna fail for the bonus policy. Scott Steiner's coming around again. Yeah, I'm not digging this segment. I also feel underwhelmed with the idea that they had Charlotte Flair come out and she got interrupted by Rhea Ripley, who said to her, "You should challenge me for the match at WrestleMania." And now they're doing this idea where Charlotte Flair is going to pop up on NXT. Will she say yes or no? That's such a lame way to do this.
They had to do it that way, even though I hated it. They had to do it that way because otherwise it then looked like Charlotte Flair was going down. But to have Ripley call your Punk card and say, yeah, you beat them, but you haven't beaten me. Okay, now we have a reason to have Charlotte Flair say, I'll challenge for the NXT title at Mania.
I still feel like they missed an opportunity to have her pop up at TakeOver. Or if they really wanted to just get a rating for 1 week of NXT, which if they're doing that just with Charlotte Flair's appearance, I think I would have approached this differently. I would have had Charlotte on that first night where she said, I'm not going to tell you my thoughts. I wouldn't have had that. I hate those type of promos. I almost would never book them to begin with. But if I were to do something like that just to stall, I think I would have something where Charlotte would say, I'm going to scout the champions, and I'll let you know when I've made my decision. And then maybe she has a match where she's like watching it on Raw, and then maybe she pops up on SmackDown. And they're like, oh wow, Charlotte's on SmackDown. What is she going to do? And she's scouting Bayley in her match against Naomi. And then suddenly you get this note, oh my god, she's going to actually pop up on NXT because she wants to check out to see what Rhea Ripley's doing. What's going on there? And then you start making people go, oh, she could pop up on any three of these and attack somebody or whatever like that. I think I'd go more in that direction. This way, it's like Ripley comes out and says, you should fight me, and Charlotte's going to either say yes or no on NXT. If she says no, then it's just disappointing television. If she says yes, then it's, well, yeah, of course she would say yes. Why wouldn't she? That you set that all up.
Do you think they rushed this because all the dirt sheets were reporting Charlotte's challenging Rhea Ripley, so they were like, all right, never mind what we were going to do. Rhea, go out there and challenge her?
If that's the case, they're looking not at the big picture because they're screwing Bianca.
They're screwing Bianca, they're screwing their own takeover. Because we still don't know how that affects, the TakeOver Tampa show.
Now I'm thinking about the... Oh, go ahead, Callum. I'll think some more about this.
Well, I think I like the approach they take of Ripley is the one that's challenging Charlotte rather than the other way around. Because realistically, that's the way that it should be. Because Charlotte would probably, in her mind, be challenging for one of the either Raw or SmackDown titles because they're one of the quote-unquote main roster titles. But Rhea Ripley came out, made the good point that she's beaten Charlotte Flair before. And so she's the one that's launching the challenge in order to, basically just stand up, because what champion would actually go up to the potential challenger and say, right, well, you think you're good enough because you won the Royal Rumble, then try and take my belt off me. So I feel like it was the right way around to do it.
To try to save Bianca from looking bad. Because right now, anytime that you announce that something's going to happen for WrestleMania and you have 2 months ahead of time and you've got challengers, everybody just writes them off. I'd love to see Bianca attack Charlotte.
She should do. She should attack, they should have their stare down confrontation thing on NXT, and Bianca should beat up both of them.
Yeah, that'd be great. Have her be like, you don't get to talk about the two of you fighting for this title. You're ignoring me. Fuck you. I'm gonna win this title. And Charlotte, if you want to fight the NXT champion, you're gonna have to fight me. They better do something like that.
What would be cool, I mean, I don't know whether they would end up doing this or not, is they getting some sort of confrontation. It leads to some sort of tag team match of Charlotte and Bianca versus Rhea Ripley and, I don't know, Candice LeRae, let's say. And then you have Bianca pin Rhea Ripley in the match. And then they're celebrating, and then she attacks Charlotte afterwards as well. Because then you've established her as, right, she can beat the champion, like, if she gets the opportunity, and she's going to go after Charlotte as well.
Yeah, there would then be an issue between her and Flair.
Yeah, and so you could start to at least feasibly think, okay, maybe they want to go with Bianca versus Charlotte at WrestleMania instead.
How much you want to bet they'd botch that too? And they end up.
I mean, they won't do that. So it's like
they'll probably
that's just my suggestion.
Flair will come out like midway through the episode of NXT because they'll advertise ahead of time and be like, "Oh, if we keep advertising it, then maybe you'll stick around and keep watching." And Flair will come out, eat up 20 minutes worth of time, and be like, "So this is NXT. I was the queen of this, and blah 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 blah." And then they'll end up going nowhere. Ugh. God, I hate WWE sometimes. Hopefully they turn out a good show on Wednesday, though. We'll see. Then we had Asuka against Natalya. Well, the only thing that I thought was interesting was this, during the match, Natalya yelled out, "Oh, you want to shoot with me?" And I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. Maybe she actually, like, socked her. She got a black eye out of the mix, I think. So that might have happened.
She posted a black eye picture afterwards.
So that's kind of fun. But Asuka beats Natalya by submission, and then she grabs Mike and she says she wants a rematch for the Raw Women's Championship, and Becky Lynch comes out, whole cocksure and a lot of bravado, and says, alright, I'll kick your ass again. And I had originally written down, okay, well, this is probably going to happen at Super Showdown, but it's happening next week. So I'm a little bit disappointed in that. I mean, they haven't indicated yet that they are going to have another match for the women's division at Super Showdown, but I'm really hoping that they're able to actually stick to that and not just have it be a one-time thing, and I think that could have potentially worked. But now that it's just on Raw, nah. Now I'm not as much into it. I was really hoping that they would make this some kind of a gimmick, and it would have been on the pay-per-view.
I feel, I mean, maybe this is just me because I'm a big fan of the Kabuki Warriors, but after watching like the match and then the post-match, with Becky coming out with the sunglasses and being all like, "Oh, I can't wait to kick your ass again," just go, "Wow, I really want Asuka to win this match and win the championship." Becky has gone far too far in the wrong direction for me, and maybe that's kind of their idea, is to be like a Stone Cold or a Rock type character who's just an asshole, but people like her because she's like really like confident and assured, and it's everything that people wish they could be in their actual lives. But for me, it's just she's coming across quite abrasive and not very likable.
And if she's going to be fighting Shayna Baszler, you want her to be likable, and Shayna to be the unlikable one. So that might go in the wrong direction. I don't know. Yeah, so my favorite part of this whole segment was actually just Kairi Sane bouncing on the ropes, looking like she was on a set of swings or something like that, but you copy and paste the same thing, it's easier, I understand it. WWE, they don't like to do a whole lot of work when it comes to this build right before WrestleMania. Everybody else talks about like how great the road to WrestleMania is, but there's a lot of bumps on the way where it's just sort of like, well, these people have been feuding, let's have them continue to do that for a couple weeks before we have to start doing our work. And I'm a fan of Asuka, I'm a fan of Becky, but without a hook, this doesn't have much for me, because it's just, remember that match at Royal Rumble? That again, on Raw.
Well, there's the argument that they're 1-1. Asuka can always pull out a good match. I think the question is now, when are you going to pull that trigger on Shayna or whoever is going to challenge Becky at WrestleMania? But I'll agree with you, there are some bumps in the road. I'd imagine one of the bigger bumps being the fact that there's a Saudi Arabian show in 21 days.
Well, one of the things we do know that's happening at the Super Showdown is that Ricochet is going to face Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship, because Ricochet beat Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins in a triple threat match to earn that title shot, which we all kind of saw coming once that was announced, because there was some setup between Ricochet and Lesnar, and that's good that they're following that up. and Ricochet and Lesnar is going to be something different. So I'm all in when it comes to that. Obviously, Ricochet is not going to win that championship. There's no way in hell that happens. But I'm okay with it, because I'm interested to see what they end up doing.
I'd be pretty shocked if this match went over 3 minutes between Brock and Ricochet. And realistically, the match you're building up is Brock Lesnar against Drew McIntyre, and you want to make Brock Lesnar look as much of a killer as possible because you're trying to make Drew McIntyre look as much of a killer as possible. So realistically, you probably should beat Ricochet in a very small amount of time. It's not great for Ricochet, but hell, he's getting a WWE Championship match, so it could be a lot worse.
Brock Lesnar, you can't, it's not too bad. I think they'll go about 7 minutes. I think Lesnar tries to suplex, Ricochet flips out of one, does some strikes, hits the 630, Brock throws him off, does Brock Lesnar things, and that's it for Ricochet.
So we don't know this yet, and we're going to try to most likely have all that information when it comes to SmackDown on Friday, but they advertised as well that Goldberg's popping up on SmackDown, and I'm assuming that this has something to do with Super Showdown, and they're basically just going to have him say, you know who's next? This person. I'm going to fight him at Super Showdown. That's the end of it.
It's Goldberg Corbin. You got to know that, right?
It's going to be Corbin.
It's got to be Corbin, yeah. Okay, so we're all in the same agreement about that. If it wasn't Corbin, I don't know who the hell would be. Maybe Sheamus, but it's
that's
Corbin.
Too soon in Sheamus's comeback to have him, because Goldberg's winning this match.
I mean, I could see a scenario happening where Goldberg says, you know, I've been sitting back here and I've been watching SmackDown, and there's a guy who's kind of acting like a bully, and I don't like bullies. So, Sheamus, you want to pick on someone your own size? Well, guess what? You're next. Like, they could do that.
They could also theoretically just have him challenge Roman, just because they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
I think these Saudi shows have proven that, but I think
it's
the
Corbin.
money is in him destroying Baron Corbin.
Fun if it's like Otis or something.
He's just kind of like, yeah, I've been sitting back here and I'm watching, and some guy, he's really pissing me off. Drew Gulak. It's like, wait, what? I'm a big fan of Gulak, but still.
If it's anybody but Corbin, Cesaro can pull a fucking match at Goldberg, if anybody can.
What if you challenged Strowman for the Intercontinental Championship?
That'd be interesting.
What a world.
Better not win it. That's for sure.
Or what if we think they're going that route, and then Sami Zayn comes out, and then it's just like an excuse for Shinsuke and Cesaro to bump around for Strowman and Goldberg in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, tag team match. That could be different.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that.
I'm still leaning in the direction that you guys are, that this is just Corbin, but, you know, by the time that SmackDown's over, we should know, and then we'll talk about that when it comes to either the next hot tags or when we're just talking about the card in general with Super Showdown, because that's not coming up too far away. We do have one more hot tag to talk about. This is a big one. George Barrios and Michelle Wilson, co-presidents of WWE, were fired, or they left, or they were told to leave, future endeavored, whatever you want to call it. They're gone. And there is apparently no plans for any kind of set succession. And the stock prices have been hit dramatically because of this. And it's a lot to unpack. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing the hot tags now with the three of us, instead of just, you know, me doing it on my own, or Rob and I doing it after Raw when we're like kind of tired or anything like that, to talk about some of these different things. Now, I obviously am not some financial officer that can break down all the ins and outs of the stock market and how this plays into this, and chief financial officer protocol means this, or any of that kind of crap. But my perspective of this whole thing is, it's very interesting timing with the XFL. It's very interesting timing with the quarterly reports. And it's very interesting timing that this is happening when there's been a lot more tension and stress. This idea that, like, Vince has lost control over this. He doesn't know what to do anymore in the future. Triple H is getting in the mix a little bit more, and maybe he understands the product better because he's got NXT, and that's doing well, but at the same time, the NXT contracts with USA, what's that going on? We're paying lots of money for these people. we got this competition with AEW. It seems like this is just a perfect storm. And Barrios and Wilson leaving, it's a big shakeup. Okay.
If I feel like the wording of the press release and the fact that there's no set successor says they were definitely fired, which is shocking because they've been at or near the top of WWE for the last decade. Now, in the press release, Vince McMahon mentions a change in philosophies. Now, I don't know. There's been a lot of crazy rumors that have been like, oh, well, they wanted WWE to sell to Disney, which have been unfounded and debunked. But to me, I'm wondering, they came in to get more sponsors and move the company differently at the start of the PG era. What if there's a move right now to move towards an adult-centered environment, and Barrios and Wilson are just dead set against it? That could be something that's like, all right, well, we're not seeing eye to eye. You know, you guys gotta go. Or there's also just the realization of they're not hitting their marks financially. Somebody's got to take the fall for this. And why not the two most high-ranking officials outside of Vince?
Yeah, as Tony said, the timing of this is interesting, but it's also utterly bizarre because the XFL is starting soon. That's Vince McMahon's new pet project outside of WWE, and he's entering this now with the two most tenured executives in his in his major company now gone and replaced by Frank Riddick III, who is a board member but has never actually been until now under any sort of official employment with WWE. And he's going to be the one that's handling this investor call, which is coming up on Thursday, where we're going to get at least some indication about how I guess badly is the right phrase to use, the right word to use. Their financials are outside of the television deals. Fundamentally, they have these two, as we all know, these two massive television deals, which are going to net them in the region of like $1 billion each for the next 5 years. Not $1 billion a year, but $1 billion for each one over the next 5 years. So that's going to keep them as profitable as the company has ever been. The issue is that every single other like metric you can really judge WWE's performances is dropping. So I was listening to the WrestleNomics podcast, which goes into a lot more detail about this stuff. So if you actually want to have a bit more of an in-depth understanding of what this means and what the current metrics are with WWE, then that's probably the better place to check out. But
I would also argue, just to add to that, go to WrestleNomics.com. For $5, you can get a very in-depth chart breakdown of WWE's entire year in 2019 financially, so that's a great deal of help.
But there's a lot of insight into this. So apparently, I won't break down everything he said, but in terms of just cliff notes, so the idea is that if they were fired, then their severance packages would have been worth about $8.5 million each.
Yep.
So you're giving out that amount of money to get rid of both of them as quickly as you can. The stock price ended up falling about at most 23% at one point. I think it's now hovering around about the $50 mark. When they started the day before, when the stock market closed before this announcement was made, they were sitting around about $62. So it's a significant fall. They were anticipated when the TV deals were originally signed that they would, at this point in time, be making around about 200 million plus, in terms of profit over the course of this quarter. They've now reduced that to 180 million, which would still be a record-setting one, but it wouldn't be significantly higher than their record when they were expecting it to be really big because of these new television deals. So they basically the guy who runs WrestleNomics just rattled off a few ideas, like the fact that there's anticipation that their network subscribers are down 10%, that their live attendance figures have dropped from around about 2 million to 1.5 million in the course of the year. Their merchandise sales are down. The impact of losing John Cena has been more significant than they were probably anticipating. They've potentially lost money on their UK TV deal. They don't have a TV deal that's currently in place with Indian television right now. So it seems like basically everything other than the Raw and SmackDown television deals is trending very negatively with WWE. There's also the fact that I think they only have half a dozen live events booked for the rest of February outside of the Raw and SmackDown and NXT stuff. And obviously the rumor that's circulating that they're not making any money at all off of NXT, which is still very much speculation at this point in time, because some people are saying they're making 60 million from it, some people are saying 30 million, some saying none at all. There's so much variety there that it's pretty obvious that nobody really knows for certain how much has been made outside of WWE, obviously. So yeah, it all just seems to be pretty bad at the moment for them.
It's a mess, and not at all what they would want to have going on the road to WrestleMania. Now, I'm sure WrestleMania, they're going to get a bump, but I mean, this is about one of the worst things you can imagine happening when your company's been, for the past couple of years, having some issues. And when you want change to happen, you want positive change, not negative change. Now, going into the XFL, there's rumors even that Barrios and Wilson were fired because this is allegedly speculation, all that other kind of stuff, all the legal crap. Let's get that out of the way. We don't know exactly what's going on, but there are rumors that maybe they were essentially asking too many questions about WWE's money being tied into the XFL, and that it could have been that, like, well, stop trying to stop us from merging these two together, and if you are not cool with the idea of the XFL having some kind of ties with WWE money, then you guys are gone. If that's the case, that's a big problem.
Well, it ties into this this lawsuit over the Oklahoma firefighters retirement pension fund, which is essentially, I think it's somebody that fund has a small amount of shares in WWE. As I say, small amount, it's about like 6,000 shares, something like that. And they've essentially launched a lawsuit into investigating if the XFL is working in WWE's best interest, and Vince McMahon is working in WWE's best interest, because of this speculation that some of the money from WWE is being used to fund the XFL's first few seasons.
And I think more so it was like WWE didn't charge Alpha what would be considered a fair amount for the XFL intellectual property.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's WWE has, obviously Vince McMahon is in control and he'll do as he pleases, but they have tons of shareholders that aren't beholden to, that just want to see WWE succeed because that boosts their shares. They want WWE to succeed because that means that their shares are worth more money. So if they could get any sort of inkling that WWE is basically like hurting its own revenue by funding something that only Vince McMahon is really interested in, I assume there's other members of the board that have got some sort of stake in the XFL, but not all of them by any stretch of the imagination. And if they're just spending some of WWE's money on something which is completely outside of WWE, or should be completely outside of WWE, they're going to go. They rightly should be upset about that. They're costing the company money.
Yeah, especially if they're the type that says, I don't think I want to be supportive of this XFL. I want you to be focusing on WWE. And if you take money from the corporation that I'm buying shares in to be able to fund this other company that I feel like is going to fail because it failed before, then you've lost my confidence. kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Now,
you've lost
of
your confidence
course,
and you've lost my money.
Yeah, and if the XFL ends up being some kind of massive success, of course, we're going to see a big change in that. But right now, there isn't a proven track record for that. There is one season that failed, and they lost money, and it hasn't started the next season yet. So I buy into that. I don't know about if Barrios and Wilson had anything to do with that, but
Well, Wilson worked for the XFL in its first season, so she had a connection to Vince through that beforehand. Before she went on to some other ventures, and I think she was part of the NFL for a while. Was it the NBA or the NFL? It was one or the other.
I think it was the NBA.
Yeah, okay, so in the NBA, so she had like a sports background beforehand, in terms of like working in the executive positions. But I assume that they both probably weren't. I don't think they had any. That their interest was WWE. I don't think they had any sort of real investment in the XFL beyond just Vince doing it. And yeah, I with everything they've been associated with towards like the PG era and the sponsorship stuff, and they were the big proponents of getting the network sorted. And I mean, realistically, I blame them a lot for some of WWE's lost money, because I assume they were the ones that were pushing the idea that, and again, this is just an assumption, but I assume they were probably the ones pushing the idea that every pay-per-view should have been on the WWE network, which I can only imagine cost WWE huge amounts of money over WrestleMania, because people would still pay pay-per-view money for a WrestleMania. And obviously, it's good for us that they've decided to put it onto the network, because it means that we just have to pay the $9.99 a month, and we get every single pay per view we want. So it's great for the consumer, but they've cost themselves probably at this point hundreds of millions of dollars on lost money through the WrestleMania stuff. It's just another sign that fundamentally we kind of credit WWE for being a little bit wishy-washy creatively right now, but like they know what they're doing business-wise. It's kind of an indication that they actually don't know what they're doing business-wise either. They've just lucked into two of the biggest television deals they could possibly hope for, and are riding those coattails.
Well, how many times are different businesses sticking around just because they've stuck around? You know? Like, let's be honest. How many people go to McDonald's because they think that the cuisine is great? As opposed to, it's McDonald's, it's quick and easy, and I know what it is. I know I'm going to McChicken. I know what it's going to taste like. It tastes the same every time I get it.
Yeah, WWE's fundamentally been around for as long as it has. Obviously, because they've done good things as well. But a big contributing factor is that if you want to watch professional wrestling in North America, until AEW came along and they're nowhere near as established yet, you went to go see WWE.
Yeah.
Now, WrestleNomics talked a lot about the John Cena factor, and I'm curious as to what you guys think about that. Do you think it's time for them to maybe back off the idea that you shouldn't just have one top guy? Because I think their business has always just worked so much better when there's a clear, like, there's Hogan, there's Austin. Like, you're coming to WWE for this guy, and then you'll stick around for everybody else.
I think he stuck like to the John Cena thing quite heavy because of the fact of how many, I think it was Google searches that he received as in comparison to any other like WWE wrestler of the past like 5 or 10 years. So yeah, I feel like, I mean, realistically, the way wrestling has kind of always worked is that you've got one big draw, or one or two big draws in the case of like Austin and The Rock during that period, and everything else kind of just flows around it. You watch and you like the other stuff, but you're really there just to see the two most popular guys.
Because we as fans of, wrestling can be like, oh, but it was so much cooler in like the Ruthless Aggression era when they had everybody because the matches were better. But like WWE, even during the lesser years of the PG era where John Cena was like the top guy, a lot of families bought into WWE because of John Cena. John Cena was huge. I don't think there's anybody right now that is that level of over with any demographic.
Well, all their boom periods have been when there's been one person.
Yeah.
It's Hogan, it's Austin and Rock. I mean, that's not one person, but you know what I mean. Cena, like, as much as we all talk about how great Shawn Michaels was, he wasn't even really the same type of thing.
No,
They had
Michaels wasn't.
Austin in the mix, but like he wasn't quite at that level yet, so they didn't have that kind of propulsion. Instead, they had Undertaker and Michaels and Hart and Diesel, and like they had a variety where they were trying to go in there. When Brett was the one, they were transitioning away from the Hogan thing, so it was kind of like there's always this like jump up and this fall down. Big thing with Hogan up, fall down with Hart and the transition. Get to Austin, big shot up, fall down again. Get to Cena, big shot up, fall down again. So, I mean, there's maybe something to be said about that, but I also feel like if you just have so many negative things going around, then it just all builds up. Like, bad creative, Saudi deals, like, that's a lot of negativity. All these issues here and there, if it was just Barrios and Wilson getting fired and we didn't have a couple of years worth of people being like, I'm so frustrated with this company, then it wouldn't be as big of a deal. Like, look at Disney. Disney does stuff like the MCU, and they, for the most part, there's some hiccups along the way, but for the most part, people absolutely love it. It's extremely popular. It makes a shit ton of money, and that's no issues, and everything's great. And then you look at subdivisions of Disney. Lucasfilm botched the hell out of this Star Wars. Well, it's not Lucasfilm's fault. It's Kathleen Kennedy and Pablo and everybody else in the story creative team and everything like that. They botched the hell out of the Star Wars franchise. And at this point now, Rise of Skywalker has the lowest cinema score, I think, lowest Rotten Tomatoes, and it's not doing as great on the box office. That's because, not just because one movie ended up being bad, it's because Force Awakens was disappointing for a lot of people. Last Jedi pissed off a lot more people. Rogue One had tons of issues. Solo had tons of issues. And now Rise of Skywalker has issues. That's 5 movies that have been problematic. And one TV show, The Mandalorian, that people like. You compare the 5 to the 1, yeah, by this point, no wonder they're having some issues. And if you compare WWE's success to all the issues of every pay-per-view having issues, every TV show having issues, years of this.
Well, I agree with you, and I know where you're going. There's still the alarming thing of Wilson and Barrios, to the best of our knowledge, don't touch the TV product.
Right.
And they didn't walk away, as we've said. This isn't like, okay, we're transitioning them out and, we have these people as replacements. No, they were swiftly fired just maybe 8 or 9 days out of their 2019 Q4 conference call. Like, that's a little scary. It's like if you came on this show next week and said, Callum and Rob aren't here and they never will be again.
Yeah. Well, spoilers, goddamn.
Jeez. People are going to ask questions, and that to me is the scariest thing here. The unfortunate thing is, I don't know if we ever know. I don't know if Wilson ever talks, if Barrios ever talks. Who's to say that we ever actually understand why this happened the way it did?
I mean, they'll cover it up with corporate speak, they always do, because that was Barrios' trademark during investor calls, was that he would dodge every single question that would come his way. That was the thing that he was probably best at. But yeah, I think it's very unlikely that we ever hear the real story of what happened. The only thing we know right now is that right now WWE is looking for a CFO and a chief revenue officer to take the roles that have been left. They now only have 3 top executives, which is Vince, Paul Levesque, and Stephanie McMahon.
That is something to think about. I highly doubt Paul Levesque or Stephanie for that matter. Maybe Stephanie, but definitely not Hunter, will be slotted into either one of those roles.
I was actually I'm forgetting Kevin Sullivan as well. He's obviously a high position.
Kevin Dunn.
Kevin Dunn, sorry, not Kevin Sullivan. Yeah,
Jeez.
that would have been fun if he'd have gotten into that. But Kevin Dunn, yeah, he's obviously a high-ranking shareholder as well.
Is it unreasonable to assume, not saying he wants to work with them, but Shane has the business background after all these years with like You on Demand and stuff like that to take this role, does he?
That could make, at least for me, I mean, I don't know any of this kind of crap, but like, that would at least make sense to me if they were looking for somebody to be like, who can take control of the company on a business side, if it not for Vince. Like, Vince dies and who takes on the succession kind of, right? Like, because it would have been Barrios and Wilson, I think, at that point, controlling the company in a lot of ways that Vince is. Shane falling into that mix makes sense to me. And then Stephanie is the brand officer and she's doing her kind of stuff, and Triple H is the head of creative. Like, that, at least, if I were somebody like shareholder, I'd be like, okay, at least they're keeping it in the family. This guy's got some experience. This guy's been a part of both the creative side and the like the business side of things. It's not like he's just,
he went away and
he got some seasoning elsewhere, instead of being that they just decided like, hey, we're gonna give it to Ted DiBiase because he played that character. Like,
Linda's got some small business experience, doesn't she?
I mean, I don't know about the Shane McMahon thing, just because there must have been some reason why they decided to leave him out of an executive level when they brought him back in the first place. I always feel like that ship sailed. But
my guess is he just doesn't want it.
Well, either that or they don't want to give it to him.
Maybe they didn't want to push out those people. Like,
yeah,
maybe that would have been too much of a, oh, you're going to fire me to put your son in there? That's nepotism.
Yeah,
like maybe now that they are gone, maybe it'll be like, look, we're looking for somebody, and now it's time for Shane to come in. Or maybe they just go, we hired this dude. This dude used to be a part of Virgin Mobile, or this guy used to run, I don't know, fucking, like, Nestle Crunch bars or something, just kind of.
And that's largely the way I see it going. But I wouldn't be surprised if you just hear, hey, let's try Shane one more time.
Well, I mean, the Shane thing, a lot of people don't seem to realise how much of a failure his other business ventures actually have proved to be.
Oh, please enlighten me, because I don't.
With this, he left to join this You on Demand thing in China for a while, and essentially it didn't make any sort of gains in the way that he was expecting it to. Like, it was like this idea that like selling pay-per-view to China's for like a low price, like an on-demand price thing, and it hasn't really reached any sort of high level now. And then there's also the story that Shane McMahon invested $500,000 into EnviroGrow, which was like a marijuana growing system. And but then the actual then to find out a couple of weeks after making the investment that the production facility pretty much didn't exist. So he's not exactly got the finest track record as a business executive.
I'd like to rescind my suggestion of Shane McMahon.
Well, I mean, at the moment they kind of need somebody to fill this role. I mean, we have no idea how good this Frank Riddick guy is, because he's virtually an unknown that was just sitting on the board of directors.
So, this kind of feels to me like this is one of those stories that we're not going to have any idea what this means for at least another full year.
Oh, yeah. And this investor call, even though it'll reveal something, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of interest surrounding it, it probably won't reveal as much as we would like it to.
Yeah. And this could be good, this could be bad. It could mean that we're getting rid of two people. Well, I mean, it's a bad transition period right now no matter what, but maybe something positive comes out of it. Maybe they get somebody on board who has better ideas and the company ends up flourishing better. Or maybe Barrios and Wilson were stopping some bad ideas and it's going to be a big problem even more. Maybe the new people are going to be like, I think it'd be a better idea if we make the network $50 a month. And then everybody's like, nobody's paying for this. And then it could be a total mess. It could be a step in the right direction, or it could plateau and be exactly the same. And we're not going to have any idea for a while. So that's going to be very frustrating. But, of course, the more that we find out, the more that we'll break down, we'll use that to kind of infer our opinions about different things in the future. If we end up having, like, the stock goes down considerably, and it's because this guy or this girl, whoever it ends up being, like, in control, they end up making mistakes, then we know that that could be an issue. If suddenly these massive deals come in where it's like they've got this better deal with India that they never would have gotten if it would have been Barrios and Wilson as part of this, then it'll be like, oh, this guy's doing great, or this girl's doing great, or, you know, I mean, like, this could be all over the place.
Very much so.
So those are the hot tags. And, of course, drop your comments below. Tell us your thoughts on this. What's the future of WWE going to happen? What are your thoughts on what happened on Raw? I don't know, got some baby name ideas for Brie and Nikki. Whatever you want to chime in about. We already did most of my plugs, so just a reminder, follow Smark Out Moment all over the place. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Smark Out Moment. Check out all the things that are happening on the website, because there's not just the YouTube channel, it's all the website content as well. You can check out some of the other stuff that I've got going on the side on Bleacher Report, on eWrestling News, and of course on fanboysanonymous.com, my site for geek culture topics. I am trying to figure out when I can figure out the time for Oscars predictions. I just haven't gotten around to it. Been way too busy, but the Oscars are coming up, so I'll watch them when that comes down, and then I'll do some kind of a breakdown of that at some point. If you want to see more from Fanboys Anonymous, head up that Patreon, especially with the Pick Your Poison tier. We've got some content that is going to be coming your way in the next couple of weeks for that. And yeah, so Fanboys and Smark Out Moment, you click all over the place and you just show your support. All of it's greatly appreciated. But these guys have plugs as well. So Rob?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DudeFleece. You can check out everything I'm doing at WrestleZone.com and over on Fightful.com, including this week, so that's Friday, February 7th, I will be on the Fightful SmackDown post-show podcast for the first time. It'll be myself and Sean Ross Sapp, so check out Fightful's YouTube channel for that. And, thanks for supporting, and I'll turn it over to Callum.
Well, I don't have anything nearly as exciting as being on a post-show with Sean Ross Sapp. What I do have is that you can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14, and just check out all the weekly articles on smarkoutmoment.com. Prioritize the power rankings, because that's the one that I write, but then check out all the other ones as well.
Alrighty, everybody. That's it for this edition, but the next time you're going to be hearing from us is going to be Wrestling is 2020. That's coming around noon on Wednesday. Stay tuned for that. Next week, we're going to do the TakeOver Portland predictions, and then we're going to carry along the rest of the month and the rest of the way on the road to WrestleMania. So, as long as you are subscribed to us, then you'll find everything that's happening when it happens. But for now, at the very least, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and we're being counted out.